Hi everyone, and welcome back to our ability system series. In this tutorial series we're going over how to create an ability system using blueprints. Previously we've set up the projectile, the AoE and the buff ability types, and now we're going to start working towards our debuff. But before we get into doing that, we need to be able to select a target and add some targets into our world, because we can't apply a debuff to ourselves, we want to apply a debuff to an enemy. So we have to set up the groundwork for those things first of all. So to begin with, we want to be able to have the ability to click on and select with the mouse enemies or targets for our player to, target. So to begin with, we need to set up a few things inside the player controller and in our game mode. So I'm going to go into my third person BP, and because I'm using a third person template, I have this folder set up. And go into the game mode. Now the game mode has our previously set up heads up display, but on the right hand side we can choose which player controller we want it to use. Now by default it may say none, or it may say player controller. Either way, we need to change this to our custom player controller. So let's go ahead and create one. I'm going to go to add new blueprint class player controller, and we're going to call this one my controller. And we're going to go into here. In here is where we're going to set up our click events. So if we go onto the right hand side details panel, you'll see that in the class defaults we have enable click events. Tick this box and hit compile. We're going to close that for now and go back to our game mode. On our game mode, we're going to change the player controller now to our custom one, which is my controller. Hit compile. Now to test that this is working, I'm going to go into my controller, and on the blueprint I'm just going to do on the begin play a simple print string, say hello, to see that it is working, and there it is, hello. So we've successfully hooked up our custom controller to our game mode, and that is now running it just fine. Now because it has that activated, the on click events activated, that means we can set up the actor click events, so you can click on actors with your mouse cursor. So I'm going to first of all create our target. So I'm going to go into a new blueprint class and choose a new character, and this is going to be a target underscore parent, and this will be the basis for all possible targets that the game may have, be it characters, inanimate objects, whatever it may be. This will be the clickable target that you want to have in the game. So in here we're going to open this up, and I'm just going to give this a basic mesh for now, and just rotate that round, and I'm going to hit compile and go into my event graph. Now on the event graph we can add an event called actor on clicked. This event will trigger when the mouse has clicked on this actor. So I'm just going to do a print string coming out of here to test that that's working. Again, we'll make it say hello. But before that will work, we need to make it so that the mouse click can see the actor. So I'm going to go into my capsule component, which is the collision mesh involved at the root of our actor, and I'm going to scroll down to the collision section. And here you'll see the object type is set to pawn, and you can see the pawn default is visibility is ignored. Visibility is what's handled by the mouse click. So we need to change that to custom and then tick visibility to block. We can now compile, and let's test that out. So I'm going to drag my target out into the world and hit play. So now I should be able to click on him and it will say hello. Okay, so that's the actor on clicked event working. Now we have to actually set up the actual targeting of our character. So we're going to store the current target we've got selected on the player's controller. So on the controller object we made, we're going to add a new variable saying current target, and the variable type for this is the target parent type, and hit compile. Now we can minimize that and go back to our target parent. So rather than printing a string, we're going to get the player controller and cast that to my controller. And we have to cast it because we've made a custom variable in it, so we now need to convert it from a generic player controller to a specific one. And as my controller, we're going to come out of here and we're going to tell it to set current target, and we'll set it to itself. So it will wipe out whatever currently was in there and change it to itself. Okay, so with that now done, we can close our target parent and the controller. So next we need to do is make it so we can see what one we've got currently selected. So we're going to create a icon and we're going to do it with a decal. So we're going to go on to, we'll go material, target selection, decal, and we're going to open this up. And I'm actually going to use a texture we've used prior, and that is the ring circle one, which we use for our holy ground. And I'm going to multiply that by a red color. So I can plug in the color into my B value slot, and select red, and hit that into base color. Now, because it is a decal, we need to change its type to the material domain to a decal, so deferred decal. And we're going to change it, well, leave it as translucent, but we need to plug in our texture sample into the opacity, like so. Oh, pardon me. We need to change it from blend mode to opaque to translucent. There you go. Okay, so that's the decal done. Next is we're going to add that to our target parent. You go outside. Go to add component and we're going to search for decal. And we're going to change the name of this to target indicator. And we're going to apply our decal we just made here. Target section decal. And we're just going to rotate it so it is up. I'm also going to squash it down. I'm just going to turn these snaps off. Like so. Or actually better yet, let's change the actual size here. So we'll do 64 by 64 by 32. Oh, it's done it automatically for us, that's fine. But we're going to just put it at its feet, like so. And hit compile. So by default, when I drag this in, we need to raise it down a little bit. Compile. So you should see a little red circle around his feet. So I'm just going to increase the size of that a little bit. So I'm just going to scale this up. There we go. So it's now got its decal set up on his feet, or at his feet rather. So that decal will be there when we want it to be turned on and off by visibility. So we need to turn its default visibility to off, like so. And then on the click compile, on the event graph we've got actor on clicked, and we're setting the current target to on the controller. Once we've done that, we're going to tell the target indicator to change its visibility to be on. Okay, and hit compile. So now hit play. You see it's off. Click on him. It's now on. So the next trick though is when we've got multiple targets. So I can click on one, click on another. Now when I click on the next one, it should turn off the other one. So that's what we've got to add on to this functionality now. So to do that, we're going to go onto our player controller. And we're going to actually create a function. And we're going to go set target. And the set target is going to require one input, and that's going to be a target. And the type for that will be the target parent. So the thinking is behind this, rather than using the variable and setting the variable directly, we're going to create a function. Now the reason why is then we can set up an event dispatcher to call out that this function has been called, and therefore everything else that is related to it can then turn off its target indicator. You'll see it should make sense when you see it working. So set target requires a target. And we're going to then drag our current target out and choose set, and simply just plug that in like so. We're then going to create a new event dispatcher, and we're going to call this one target changed. And I'm going to drag that out and choose call. And basically when its set target has been called, it will call this target changed event dispatcher out, so anything that's listening can react to it. Hit compile and go back to our target parent. Okay, so once we've got that, we need to change a little bit here so that we are, rather than setting the current target via the variable, we're going to do it by the function. So we're going to move that aside, and as my controller, set target function. And we can get rid of this one and click on that. Okay, with that done, we are going to then get our our binding from my controller. So we're going to go bind event to target changed. We're then going to tack on our set visibility at the end there. Okay, so bind event to target changed. We're going to again go down here and set up a custom event, and this is going to be called clear target. And this is going to be the turning off of our target indicator. So set visibility and set to false. So what's happening here is that when we click on the actor, we're getting the controller and changing its variable for the current target based on this function. In that side of that function, we are calling out that we have changed the target. But after that, we're then telling it to bind the event to target changed. So whenever it hears the call has been made, it will do this clear target. Now, because the current one we clicked on happens after this, that means it won't be affected by the new shout out. And then afterwards, it will carry on and change its target indicator to visible. It's quite convoluted, but it should be fine to work. So I click on one, and I click on another, and you can see it turn off the previous one. And it's turning off the previous one because it's bound that event to that event dispatcher. So when I click on a new one, it's calling out, and then it's affecting all the other targets that have been set up and previously clicked on. So I can now toggle between the two with relative ease. And this will work regardless of how many you have now. So I can drag another one out. Click, click, click. Okay. And there we have our target indicator set up for our debuffs. So now we have that set up, we can now use the MyController object and its current target variable to affect many things. So for example, the fireball, we can make it then home to that target, and we can now set up debuffs to also put a debuff on that particular target. There's lots of things we could do with that. So what we're going to do in the next episode is start work on our debuff parent and start setting up the ability to debuff our targets. If you want to watch that episode right now, head over to Pt.11/RyanLaley, where a donation of just $1 will get access to that video, plus many others. Big shout out and thank you to all my patrons and my YouTube members for their continued support. This wouldn't be happening without you guys, so thank you so much. If you like what I do, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit that like button. Thanks all, and I'll see you all next time. Bye bye.